Hello everyone, welcome back to Life After Work. My name is Solomon. Uh, Ready to post another video. I've had a full week of work on the New Jersey, so I wanted to bring you up to speed on where I was with that. And we'll see how it goes. I may go ahead and give some hints on previews, let's call them, of what we may be doing in the near future. And just enjoy. And if there's any comments, please put them down below. If there's anything you would prefer I did in the way I present or whatever, or if there's something you just seen I didn't do, that's good. I'll listen to all of it. So here's the offering for this week. Hope you enjoy. I've made a bullet list of items I want to cover in this video. It's not really a script as such, but just some bullet items. First section is going to cover paint and issues around painting. The second one's going to be the corrections I have to make to the model, some of which I've already been doing. It's actually shaping up nicely. And then I want to talk about the assembly instructions for this model, and this is for people who may be thinking about getting it. It's a good model, but I think there's some issues with the way they want it assembled. So first thing we'll talk about will be my spray booth and how I'm going to take care of overspray and odors and all that here in the garage, and I'll get to that right now. Okay, very briefly, this first little item I want to bring up, before I can paint here in the garage, I've got to have a way to basically to deal with the particulates, basically the stuff that will settle and land on things that's in paint. I can't have that. I've got to be able to collect that, plus the volatiles, which, believe me, the volatiles are the big deal. I don't want this garage filling up with fumes. So I've got an airbrush table over here. The airbrush booth that I used is a good one. It's got an explosion-proof fan in it and a filtering system for the particulate matter, but it's not big enough for this model. So what I've done is to get a couple of apple boxes. I've put them together, removed parts of them, and I'm putting my small spray booth in the back of it, and I'm going to tape it off. I've still got a lot of work to do just getting it ready to go, but before I can do any painting in here, I have to have this working, and it will vent outside. I'll open the garage door by just a couple of inches and that should work fine. So this is where I am with that. The next item, as far as paint goes, let me turn back around and I'll get to that. Talk about paint. In the instructions that come with the model, they give a paint schedule, and that paint schedule is right here. You'll notice it's alphabetically ordered and by language as well. So if you go down, you'll find just one column in here is in English. And if you read through all of the notes, it says that if you're building this model in America, ignore that paint schedule. Those paints are available in Europe. So if you're in Europe, you want to build the model, you can follow it. In the US, no. Now, as far as the rest of the world, it doesn't really say, but you just have to decide. If you can find them, you find them. But if you can't find them, you have to decide what color you're going to want to use to paint the ship. The big deviation that I might make, and I'm not sure at this point if I will, and that's the fact that the model and all of its color pictures show a red bottom, a black band, and of course the haze gray from there up. Um, I've seen dozens and dozens of pictures and videos on the internet and on YouTube of the New Jersey in and out of the water, and I haven't seen any of them that had anything but a black hull. I'll put one of them right down here so that you can you can see what I'm talking about. Now, I have found some where it was in dry dock, I think in 1990, probably getting ready to go into the museum mode. And there's this ever so slightly red bottom, as though it was just a primer that was showing through. But maybe I'll put that on here and you can see for yourself. But I'm not sure if I'm going to put that red bottom. It's my model. If I want a red bottom, I put a red bottom. But I'm going to stay pretty much traditional Navy. I've been underneath a lot of our ships. We have anti-fouling paint, which is black on the bottom of the ships. That keeps down the barnacle growth and the like. So the paint schedule and the instructions, be sure that you understand if you're in America, you can't get those paints. If you're in Europe, you should be able to. So that's enough about paint. Now let's get to the corrections to the model. Okay, the next thing I want to get into are some of the corrections I have to make to the model. I've already discussed these briefly before, but I've been trying to come up with a plan on exactly how I was going to do it so it would work out accurately. It's actually easier said than done for some of these, but I think it's important. Now I'm going to periodically be cutting away from here and showing you pictures of the New Jersey and of the items I'm talking about. I told you last time that I was going to be working on the main deck. The main deck was difficult to get on the hull, which causes problems when you're gluing, because you've got to put the glue down, you got to get the deck on and be done with it. Plus the fit was such that it wouldn't fit. And what it turned out on the stern, this piece right here was a little bit too long, and when it was put in on the ship, it caused the deck to bow. Well, that's unacceptable when you're trying to glue. So I've gone back and made some adjustments, cleaned off all the burrs. I can now lay this in all the way to the stern and it'll fit just fine. At the time that I glue it, I'm going to put rubber bands around it to hold it, and actually all of these joints around here fit perfectly when it's put in. Now I cut out one of these cross supports like I said I was going to do. I took the longest one and I've cut it into shorter half round pieces. Don't know how well you'll be able to see that. Those will go in some of these spots where it's kind of loose around here so that the deck can fit firmly against them, and I'll go ahead and square them up real well and glue them on. And you know, that other than just making those adjustments, I think this is all going to fit quite well. Now, corrections. Right now it's not on, but there will be a bull nose that goes up here on the bow of the ship. That bull nose is something that was put on, I think, when it went into Vietnam service. It wasn't on the original ship, so it's accurate for this 1982 version. Also, I mentioned that right here we had what would be an opening coming out the bow of the ship, and I've seen pictures of it being towed from one yard to the next, and they tow through this rather than pull an anchor chain out. It's common on the Iowa class ships. So I've been trying to figure out how I can drill that hole out correctly and come to the right spot right here. Well, I have to have the deck mounted to do that, the way I plan on doing it. But you can see, I hope, that it's this right here. I've got to clear that out. Now, I've decided the way I'll do that, I'll get the main deck glued down. I'll probably take my Dremel with a much smaller, finer drill and cut that out. Then I'm going to take this. It's a piece of styrene tubing. It actually, the anchor chain passes through it perfectly. It's the perfect size. So I need this to be in here and coming out down here. So that's my problem right now, is how I'm going to get that done. And I really need the deck on permanently before I do that. I then am going to remodel these openings for the anchor chain. These are just wrong. They're silly looking. And I'll put some pictures in right here. There, and as you can see, they're much more prominent on the New Jersey than they are on the model. So I want to fix that. I want to be able to look at the bow of this model and see what I see in those pictures that I just showed you. So that's got to be done. Now I pretty much, and I'll show you some more video and some more photos. If you look at the pictures, you'll see that there's a gutter all around the deck. Now that's what we called it on the ships I've been on. It was a gutter, and it stands up maybe 3.5, 4 inches all the way around the edge. The way this fits is perfectly flat. There is no gutter. That's just not correct. So I started trying to figure out what scale. Well, I didn't want to do a calculated scale because the numbers are so small it would be meaningless. But I did find, and by the way, this tube was an 1/8 inch tube. Basically, what was that in millimeters? I'm looking upside down. That's 3.2 millimeter diameter. This, however, is an angle, and I doubt seriously you can see the angle in that, but it is a 90-degree angle. I got one that would not mathematically scale, but when I set it here on this ship and I put it beside the bits that they have on here, it still looks a little bit big, but it's the smallest size I could find, and it literally is 1.2 millimeter, 3/64 of an inch both directions. So this is going to have to go all the way around the main deck, and it's so small, gluing it on is going to be a challenge. So I've been working on a plan for gluing it on, and this is where I want to put this on before I glue the deck down. That way I maybe, and I'm going to use this technique on a number of things, I have taken clothespins, reversed them so I have a better clamping edge, and see if that will help me keep it aligned around these curves. I have a whole bunch of them. I'll just put them on, then go in and spot glue it. That way then when I come back in and put the main deck in, it'll everything will line up pretty well. That's going to be tricky, I know that, but I feel like it has to be done. So that's a modification I have to make. Uh, the bits and chocks. Let's go back and talk about bits and chocks. And I'll put this back on just so it'll be a little clearer. All right. When I talk about bits, let me bring this around to the camera. I'm talking about these things that stick up. Let's get a better picture of them. And I call them things because I'm going to show you some pictures right now. Matter of fact, I'll put one of them right down here in the corner of the picture. These chocks aren't even close to accurate. They're the way they are because I had to get them out of the injection mold. I just assumed, since they made the chocks, and I have to put 2 chocks, one on either side of every one of these bits, all the way around, even 2 chocks back here on the stern, and these things are everywhere. So there's going to be quite a bit of detail work on that. These are vertical, they're tapered, they don't have a cap on them, and that's just wrong. That's incorrect, because the ones on the New Jersey, at least some of them, and I've got to check to see if it's some of them or all of them, they're sitting at an angle away from each other, but they still have the caps on them, and they're still vertical, just like every other bit in the Navy on every other Navy ship. So I need to take a look at that and decide. I wake up some mornings, I want to cut them off and make my own. It's real easy. All I have to do is go to the hobby shop and get the right diameter of solid rod. I don't know, there's several ways it could be handled. I'm not even, yeah, see, I could fit this over them, except it's just too big. But so I got a lot of thinking yet to do on that. I'm not going to stress over it, but I do want to get the chocks put on, because when I do this guttering around the edge, some of it is open where the chocks are, and I've got to do a little more research on where that is. So that's a modification that I'm going to have to work on, how I'm going to deal with that.